Time now for Back Pages tonight here on Sky Sports News, bringing you a first look at the sports stories in the morning's newspapers. And joining us are football writer and broadcaster Henry Winter and the Sun's football writer Charlie White. Hi guys, welcome to you both. We'll chat to you shortly. Let's run through those back pages first of all, starting with Charlie's paper, The Sun. A lot of focus on the back pages on Benjamin Sesko, and the headline there, Cesco price match. Striker can pick between Manchester United or Newcastle. To the Times, who also have Cesco featured on their back page, talking about that £74 million bid. Newcastle still in the hunt though, they say. To The Guardian, where United trigger Cesco swoop as Newcastle try to salvage the deal, and also they have a picture of a fox stopping play at the 100. To The Telegraph, also Cesco featuring again, and there's also a picture of Thomas Partey there arriving at court. And inside the Telegraph's sports section, Martin Gamble rewarded with rousing victory as they hone in on Rangers' brilliant win over Victoria Pilsen in that Champions League third qualifying round. Charlie, let's start with you and your paper, The Sun. This is your story here on Benjamin Sesko. Cesco price matches the headline, and you talk about a bit of a bidding war going on for Cesco. Is that where we're at with this? It's a real tug of war between Manchester United and Newcastle for Cesco.
Well, we do have another transfer saga, aren't we? We've got one in August now. We've had Victor Gyökeres and that dragging on with Arsenal. Of course, we had Mbomo as well, Brentford to United. That seemed to take ages. But the difference on this one, of course, is that there are two clubs with the money that are really desperate for his signature. And this is what makes it, really, really intriguing. And it could drag on. Manchester United have bid £74 million. Newcastle have already made two attempts. The second one is a similar amount. There's a bit of a debate in terms of Newcastle's add-ons, but I think we're talking similar figures. And Leipzig are desperate to sell. Cesco is desperate to play in the Premier League, quite clearly. So at the moment, we're waiting for whether there's a bid, or if there's not, whether Cesco ends up having a choice of these two clubs. So, I think this one's going to rumble on for a bit, but quite clearly, I think Leipzig want to get the money in and start signing some other players and a big replacement.
Charlie, just going to stay with you on this because, as I mentioned in the introduction, this story features in a lot of the back pages and also on the front of the Telegraph's sports section. United in £74 million bid. And interestingly, just underneath that headline, it says striker could announce which club have won the chase as soon as Wednesday. I mean, do you really expect this move to progress quite quickly?
Well, look, I think it really depends on whether neither club's prepared to offer any more, and then ultimately, if the terms are the same, then we're going to talk, figures in terms of wages as well. So, it's certainly an intriguing one, and Cesco, I think, is relieved because a couple of weeks ago it looked as though he was going to be left high and dry, and I think there was a concern, certainly at Leipzig, that there wasn't going to be a Premier League club coming in for him. But it looks as though quite clearly now, two very different options, but equally would be a huge opportunity for him, whether it's Newcastle or United.
Henry, can you see why there is this strong pursuit of Benjamin Sesko when you look at his age, his height, his speed, the fact he scores goals? He's got a lot of experience for a young player.
Yes, he has, and he will clearly be. I mean, Manchester United are clearly, I would say, the favourites now. Not simply because of this bid, because they've also shown interest in him before, and also if you look at the team that Ruben Amorim chose at the weekend against Everton, he played three of his four number 10s in the attacking position. He played Matheus Cunha, who we expect to start as the left-sided number 10 in Amorim's 3-4-2-1. He played him as a centre forward, and Rasmus Højlund was on the bench for 2/3 of the game. So clearly Manchester United are very confident about getting a number 9 in, and Cesco clearly, as you say, he's quick. He's still only 22, so he's got he will still develop and develop. Personally, I think they need a number 8, a sort of physical, athletic, more mobile central midfielder as well. But if they can land Cesco, I think that will be terrific. But as Charlie was alluding to, RB Leipzig can be difficult to negotiate with, as Arsenal found out. Leipzig love an add-on, so I think there'll be an incremental element with this. But what a lovely position for Benjamin Sesko at 22, sort of not even a quarter of the way into his career, to have two such clubs chasing him. I mean, one offers cash and cachet, as it were, in Manchester United, biggest club in the country, and he can see the project that Ruben Amorim is trying to build there and drag them out of this slump they've been in pretty much since Ferguson left. Or he can go and be an absolute idol on Tyneside as their centre forward if Isak does move to Liverpool.
It's an intriguing position Cesco finds himself in, Charlie. This story also featuring on The Guardian. They take a slightly different angle where they talk about Newcastle trying to salvage this deal. How delicate a position are Newcastle in right now? They've got that Alexander Isak situation going on in the background, yet they want to bring in this new striker before, or if they do sell Isak. How much do they need this Cesco deal right now, Newcastle, Charlie?
I mean, they do, but I still think they're in a pretty strong position because, of course, all along, Newcastle have maintained that they didn't want to sell Isak, and obviously he's now, made it quite obvious that he wants to join Liverpool. But for a start, Liverpool have got to offer more money to Newcastle, and they've got to get a replacement lined up. So I don't think Newcastle are going to find themselves in a situation where they don't have an Isak or a Cesco. I think that they'd feel pretty comfortable up there at the moment. Of course, ideally they want to keep Isak. I think that's obvious. But once you've got a player who's had his head turned and Liverpool are prepared to pay what Newcastle want, then it makes sense for Newcastle to let him go. But equally, we've seen, on a number of occasions previously where we've all thought a player was going to leave, and then sort of last minute it's not quite happened, and people think, the fan's going to turn on the player, and then within a couple of weeks they score some goals, and all's perfect again. So I think Newcastle will feel comfortable at the moment, but equally, I'm sure, understandably, Eddie Howe will want to get it done either way.
Charlie, we're just working on improving the link we have with Henry right now, so we'll stay with you and go to the Mirror. Their headline there, Isak's Cesco limbo. How much of a limbo position do you think Isak is in? I mean, where does the balance of strength lie here? You alluded to Newcastle being in a strong position. Is that because of the length of the contract that Isak has at Newcastle?
Yeah, it's the length of the contract. And of course, ideally, I think, Newcastle would like to offer him a much bigger deal. And of course, there were talks about that at the end of last season. But Liverpool have got to come up with the money. I mean, Liverpool have already had an unbelievable summer, haven't they? Of course, they were ever so quiet last year. Arne Slot came in and delivered, something unbelievable, really, to win the title and almost, transform the title race. When his only player that actually came in was Chiesa, and he barely played. So now they've given him some, proper ammo in terms of players and the money that they've spent, and all those signings have looked excellent. And let's not forget, Liverpool's transfer sort of record over the last 8 or 9 years has been outstanding. There's not been too many players that you could say were a disaster, and there's no doubt that Isak in that team, looking at the players that Liverpool already signed, is going to make Liverpool an incredibly strong team, not just in the Premier League, of course, but in Europe again. So I can see why he might want that challenge, but equally I think it's a shame that Newcastle have done so well to get back into the Champions League, and Isak has become such a terrific player and really flourished for Eddie Howe. And I'd really like to see Newcastle maybe add a couple more players and challenge for the Premier League next season, which with Isak and a couple of more signings, I actually think they could do.
Thanks very much, guys. Back with you again shortly for more chat. We're going to take a quick break right now. When we return, we'll look at more of the sports stories in the morning's papers, including a great night for Rangers as Martin Gamble is rewarded with rousing victory. You're watching Back Pages tonight, and joining us are football writer and broadcaster Henry Winter and the Sun's football writer Charlie Wyatt. Welcome back to both of you. Now, we just want to talk about Rangers and go to you, Henry, on what was an excellent night for them. A really interesting subplot to this with Russell Martin, his comments off the back of what he saw as a disappointing performance against Motherwell in that Scottish Premiership opener. And then he gets a response like this from his players, a 3-0 win against Victoria Pilsen in what looked like a bit of a tricky tie on paper in the first leg.
Yeah, it did. It's just a superb result for Rangers and for Russell Martin. You know, he's been criticised when he was down south for not having a plan B, but plan B was to sort of bomb out some of the bigger names. He dropped his captain, Tavernier, he dropped one of his main midfielders, Raskin, and he was rewarded with a performance like this. Some of the new boys came in and did fantastically.
Charlie, let's go to you on this story as well, because it's very interesting to see what happens when a manager comes out and criticises his team, as Russell Martin did following that draw against Motherwell at the weekend. What sort of response is he going to get from his players? Is it going to be a great bounce-back response, or are the players going to go into their shell a bit? He would have absolutely got the response he wanted there.
Yeah, I mean, it can go either way when the manager calls out his team. And I think it's quite unusual for him to do it after a few games. So quite clearly, you know, Russell Martin has seen issues from the moment he's taken over, I think. Obviously, they were unconvincing against Motherwell. They were a bit lucky against Panathinaikos. And let's not forget, he has also brought in 9 new players, which is quite a lot. But he's clearly unhappy with some of the old guard. But they played really well tonight. You imagine they're going to get through now. I can't imagine they're going to suffer a real disaster in the Czech Republic next week, and then on to a playoff, which, you know, is going to be really difficult. It could be Salzburg or Club Brugge. They both played in the Champions League last year. But if Rangers could do that, that would be fantastic for the club to get through to the group stages. I mean, I think they've only been in the group stages once in the last 15 years. And I think I was at one of the games 2 years ago when they lost 7-1 to Liverpool. So, you know, it would mean so much for the fans and for Russell Martin to get into the group stages and really give a good account for themselves. And it would help this team grow. But equally, you know, there's still a work in progress. I think that's obvious.
Henry, I just wanted to get your take as well on what you think as a general concept as a manager coming out and criticising his team so publicly. We heard from Russell Martin saying his team were outfought, the opposition Motherwell were braver, there was a mentality problem, some needed to drop their egos. I mean, strong comments. Do you think in your years of experience that kind of approach works, or do you think players need a bit more of an arm around the shoulder these days?
Well, firstly, I think there would have been Rangers fans who would have nodded in approval, particularly when they saw, as you say, the reaction tonight. I mean, it's a card and it's an ace that a manager can play only very, very rarely, to actually sort of throw your players under the bus. And I mean, he probably really only threw sort of some of them halfway under the bus, but it was still quite a strong thing to do, particularly when players could point maybe to the tactics and a new system coming in and trying to sort of absorb that. But he's gone in there. He's a strong, confident young manager. He's got his own views, particularly on how the game should be played. And if those players, particularly with an open transfer window, aren't prepared to sort of come along on his journey and the way he is driving the bus, to continue the analogy, then they might have to be moved on. So I think it was a message to his dressing room, a message to the fans, and also maybe a message to the board that he needs some recruitments.
Charlie, let's go to a couple of pages that are focusing on Florian Vertz and his price tag at Liverpool. Headline in the Express, and indeed the Star, focusing on this particular story. And the Express here, I'm happy to be top floor. What do you make of this as an issue? Do players really in this day and age get weighed down by big price tags, given there are so many big price tags out there?
I think it really varies on the player and his personality, doesn't it? Really, I mean, Jack Grealish has spoken about it. He was a 100 million player, and I think he may have struggled at times and thought about it. I don't think Declan Rice has ever really struggled, and he's spoken at length about it as well. So quite clearly here, Vertz is not bothered about it. And I know it was only friendly, but any Liverpool fan, who is just remotely worried about whether he was going to hit the ground running. Having seen him play yesterday, and he was outstanding. And there's obviously a lot more to come. I think he's a brilliant signing. He's going to make Liverpool even stronger, and he's clearly got a strong mentality. And if a player's got that, as people in Germany seem to insist that he has, I don't think this huge fee is going to affect him whatsoever. But equally, we could have another big fee in the next few weeks, and the player struggles and he's a disaster.
Henry, do you think in general that Vertz has been one of the signings of this summer window so far?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you look at a player like him and you think he could play in any era. With his just approach, that hunger, that physicality, that movement, that intelligence. And I think he could play in any position as well. I mean, Liverpool have been using him in pre-season as a 10, but he can drift. He's strong enough to play and mentally durable enough to play up front, with his back to goal. But as a 10, I mean, he's just an outstanding individual. He can play slightly deeper as well. You see on the back of Charlie's paper here, Flo forgets the fee, and Charlie's completely right on this. I mean, we're talking about elite athletes with elite mindsets here. They will absolutely love those numbers. He will love the fact that he has got such a price tag like that on him. I don't think, forget about the price tag. That's one for the sort of musical fans on the back page of the Star. He will love that. And you know what? I mean, Charlie's right. In a week's time, he might not even be, the biggest signing at his own club, let alone the country. So I think a player of his mentality, that strong German mentality, coming into what is a very welcoming club and a very welcoming dressing room with a lot of strong individuals in that dressing room. You think of the number of international captains there are in that dressing room, whether it's Andy Robertson with Scotland, Endo with Japan, Mo Salah with Egypt, Virgil van Dijk with Dutch. I probably missed out one or two as well. There's strong individuals in that dressing room, and he is going in there, and he knows Frimpong well from their time in Germany. So he will step in there, and as you've seen already, he's hit the ground running. And actually, some of the focus, amusingly, has been taken away by this fantastic 16-year-old that Liverpool have got, who used to be at Chelsea, Rio Nguma, and on the left side. So there's, as ever with Liverpool, there's focus on players, and also the terrible tragedy of what befell Diogo Jota. So there are many elements and many narratives in Liverpool at the moment, of which Florian Vertz is only one. And look, he will embrace that challenge, because you've seen him what he's like when he takes a ball in tight areas. His ability to thread a ball through, his ability to go his own. He's just got so many strengths. And I'll be surprised in 8-9 months, you, me, and Charlie aren't talking about him as contender for Footballer of the Year.
Oh, there you go. Henry has said it there. We'll look back on those comments in a few months' time, I'm sure. Now, talking about big transfer fees, and another player moving for a significant fee is Victor Gyökeres, Charlie. And in your paper, you've concentrated on Arsenal's strikers from recent years. And I had a quick look at this article. Not too many high scores in there.
No, there's not. I mean, Gyökeres is due to make his debut in front of the home fans tomorrow against Villarreal. There's going to be at least 55,000 in there at the Emirates to watch him. And of course, those supporters are dying for another striker to really get them excited, because of course, you think about top Arsenal forwards, you of course think of Ian Wright, but more recently, Bergkamp and Henry. And since then, since the invincible season, they've been on this sort of seemingly never-ending search. So I've sort of gone through all the strikers, marked them all out of 10. Robin van Persie got 8, had one brilliant season, didn't he? And Aubameyang got an 8 as well. But I've actually got a couple of 1s in there as well. 1 out of 10. I think any Arsenal fan that can remember Yaya Sanogo or Park Chu-young will probably agree with me that they weren't worth a 2.
Henry, what's your take on that article and some of the strikers that Charlie was touching on there? Have Arsenal had a bit of an issue in that area in recent years, finding that figurehead, that key number 9?
a bit of an issue is probably one of the biggest understatements of the year, or in recent years. I mean, if you talk to Arsenal fans, they will say it has been the number one discussion about a number 9. I mean, Charlie had some names in there I'd absolutely completely forgotten about. I think Robin van Persie was really the sort of the most recent, and that's what 10, 15 years ago, elite level striker. Aubameyang, the goals in the cup final. Yes, but he blew hot and cold. But absolutely, I mean, Giroud, never quite sort of did it. Remarkable durability. But, there are many, many players in there. Adebayor did well and then sort of disappeared, or he went to Manchester City. Not many greats in that list. When you can go back to Ian Wright, Alan Smith, Frank Stapleton. You can go back in time at Arsenal with some of the fantastic centre forwards that they've had. So it was very interesting to watch. But have they been waiting for a number 9 for a few years? Absolutely.
They have got one now. Coventry fans will know quite how special Victor Gyökeres was in the Championship. Things he did were absolutely amazing. He was prolific in Portugal as well. Charlie, is he going to hit the ground running at Arsenal?
I think he's a good signing. I think he's going to be a great signing. He's going to offer something different as well, which is important for Arsenal, and it'll be a challenge for Arteta as well to try and get him to fit into this team. But I think this is exactly what Arsenal needed. This is what the fans have been calling out for. He's been excellent in Portugal. And I know it's easy just to say, well, it was only in the Portuguese league, but he did really well in the Champions League. He scored a hat-trick against Manchester City. He is used to the English game as well. Obviously, he's scored over 20 goals for Coventry. My colleague, Jordan Davis, spoke to him on the tour a few days ago with Arsenal, and was sort of surprised that he was quite sort of mild-mannered. He wasn't particularly sort of outspoken, almost quite nervous. So he's going to obviously have to get used to playing for such a massive club. Very different, of course, from playing in the Championship, and there'll be far greater pressures on him. But of course, when he was playing for Sporting Lisbon, every game he played, he was expected to score. He had a lot of pressure, on him last season and the previous season. So I think it's an intriguing one. And also, when you look at some of the other fees we're looking at the moment, I wouldn't say it's a bargain what Arsenal have paid for, but it's actually not too bad. So I really hope it's a big success, and I'd like to see him do well. And I think Arsenal fans certainly deserve. I think they deserve to have a number 9 that they can sort of hero worship, because it's been a long time.
We'll be watching very closely. Of course, the Premier League season starts very soon indeed, and lots of it to watch here on Sky Sports. Charlie, Henry, thank you so much for your time and your insight. Great to talk to you. Appreciate you being with us. Now, if you missed any of the show, there's another chance to see Back Pages tonight at 1:30. The show's also available as a podcast. Just download Back Pages on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts from. And join us again on a Wednesday night when our guests will be Charlotte Dunker from The Times and Andy Dunn from The Sun. So do join us for that here on Sky Sports News. On the way in the next hour here, much more on all of our top stories, including the latest on that man, Benjamin Sesko. Will he be moving to Manchester United or Newcastle potentially? We'll have the latest on his future next.